All right. It is Monday, 9:03, so we're 3 minutes past, but we are on Monday again. And let me stop sharing one of my screen if I can figure out how to get there. Give me a second. Um, Technical difficulties, as always. Okay. So, hello, everybody. Let me start that over. Here's Joseph and Autumn again, and we are starting off 9 p.m. ish Monday to do a Let's Talk series. And today we are talking about conceptual rendering. So, hi, Autumn again. Great to see
Hi,
you.
you as
and
well.
yep, and we thought about doing this topic as this is sort of the continued topic that I tend to do presentations on different conferences and such. And I figured it'll be due to my channel to have actual presentation here too. And this is a sort of an evolving piece. I try to update it as the latest technology becomes available, or my workflow changes a little bit, or different type of software or hardware are released to different facets of conceptual rendering. So this is, I guess, still work in progress, if you will. And you were also quite interested in this topic, so I figured I'll be very suited to talk on this week. And we still have a couple of more topics that we are still kind of thinking about for next week. But until then, we'll talk about this one here. Um, did you have any thoughts in conceptual rendering when you first heard that? What did you think of?
Yeah, I mean, conceptual, I feel like is always the starting point of a project. So it's kind of like, how do you start it and kind of what goes into it? Is it more, I guess, can you be a little bit more realistic with the conceptual, or is it strictly just inspiration, or is it a few ideas here and there to get a project started?
Yep, yep. So I think it's two words. It's for sure two words, conceptual, and the second word is rendering. And rendering could mean many things, but I think you've got the conceptual part pretty well. So we'll just kind of depict that as we kind of go through a couple of slides that I prepared over the years. So let me go ahead and
Perfect.
do that presentation, share my screen if I can find the right screen. Sorry, I'm kind of juggling a couple of screens here. Okay, share. So I hope you see that. And if you see that, it also means
Yep.
people who's streaming can see it too. And by the way, this is all live. So for those of you who are watching live, are able to chat to us and ask questions. And hi, I'm going to chat that here. Hi, everyone. And you're able to chat to us. And if you have any questions, we are able to answer that as well. So if you have some random questions in your head, please do feel free to uh, jot that down there, and we'll be happy to answer or discuss about it. So the first one, conceptual rendering, it's two-parted word, or sorry, two-parted title, and it's a conceptual rendering. And it is normally used for design communication. And it's all about the communication and how do I get my thoughts in my head or thoughts in your head into a medium that we can just kind of table it and discuss together. How do we communicate designs and thoughts and concepts is sort of how everything kind of evolved from. So let's talk about why the design communication is important. During designing process, we talk about what kind of space we're going to design, where is it, in what kind of form, how big it is. There's so many things to iron out and discuss. And some people are better in adjectives. Some people are not so great at adjectives and perhaps not even English, like myself. and some people are not used to sharing their thoughts and ideas. So it often comes down to designer or architects or any of those professions to interpret what the other your client is saying. And it's not just isolated for clients only, it is also for your colleagues or any
Mhm.
other stakeholders, someone like city reviewer or inspector, if you will. So design communication skill becomes very, very important in our profession. So this is what we tend to do, or what I want to do, and often I don't get the enough time to do this anymore. But in the olden days, we did more of hand sketches and some ideas, and either napkin scrabbles and what you call a chicken scratch were very useful in either kind of solidifying your own ideas or even talking about your ideas to another person who's just sitting across the table. And you tend to do some very crude looking sketches, or it could be something as a bit more polished like this so that it is a bit more colorful and pretty
Mhm.
to look at, that sort of thing. But just think about sketches. They are primitive, they're rough and free form, and it is not limiting. And it just kind of demonstrates and shows your concept. So we just want to kind of sit on that thought a little bit. So this is sort of cute diagrams you perhaps did in your university or when you were doing studies. This is what I did. These were my college diagrams, and I like these simple form geometry to play with. So when you have a shape, you talk about how to chamfer a form to just kind of make it form fitting, and then where to display things, where the view is going to come from, how to bulge a form so that it is more shaped like a building format, what kind of side elements going to influence it, how do we kind of permeate through a different geometry and shape. These are the adjectives and verbs that we used when we describe the concepts of our projects in the past, or
Mhm.
perhaps present as well.
Were those, sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt, but were those, so is this within a software or is this more?
This was mixture of SketchUp and Illustrator
Okay.
for both of these. But yes, this was not in a singular format. It
Mhm.
was sort of a mass study, obviously.
Yeah.
So I did the massing on SketchUp, and then I later used those vector lines
Mhm.
into a probably exported out to CAD format, and then
Oh, yeah.
utilize Illustrator to thicken the line or add a couple of more dash line or dotted line and write out using my favorite font back then. I think it was like a Euro style or something. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Very cool. It's taking you back,
Hmm.
reminiscing of
Hmm.
the old days. The
Yeah.
dream job would be able to just sketch and draw and model all
Right,
day.
right, right. So that would be my happy place.
Yeah.
um, So, if you're a student at one point in time, especially in design and architecture school, you remember doing those type of diagrams and perhaps a model like this. We all spend endless hours in physical modeling, either painting your own desk or table or room or your lawn, or spending endless hours in CNC machine or laser cutter. These days, I heard people 3D print the darn thing, but I predate those times. So, unfortunately, that did not come. Or there were very early people who was doing some of those, but it,
Mhm.
it was very, very expensive and costly. So it was a lot easier for me to take scissors and just cut those wood pieces so that I can just make form of stairs on my building.
Yeah. Did you have to do this to scale? This is to scale?
Yes, everything's
Yeah.
to scale.
Yeah.
I think time to time I had to fudge it a little bit, but
Yeah.
everything's to scale. The slab
Yeah.
thickness is actually correct.
Wow.
But obviously, you would expect to actual have railings on here so that people don't fall off the
Yeah.
edge of the building. But yes, it is to scale, and you can kind of see my style.
Yeah.
My style is kind of clean, white,
Hmm.
touch of blue here and there. I just tend to do that
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
different places. So yeah, it is sort of something that I do,
Yeah.
and I
This
notice
is super cool. I did something very similar in college, but we used butterboard, and it almost had like a yellow. It's like cardboard,
chipboard.
like
I called it chipboard, or we called it
chipboard.
chipboard. Yeah.
Would it be chipboard? Is it chipboard? I'm thinking of a bunch of wood together, compressed together.
No, no chipboard. No, a bunch of chips pressed together will be oriented strand board, or OBS, and then
Okay.
chipboard is like a basically yellow cardboard.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we use. So all of our models were yellow.
Mm.
So the color we brought, we would try to bring in like trees or flowers, or that would be the color within it, is the yellow.
I mean, in early form, when we are developing the concept, we will
Mhm.
make it out of the yellow cardboard because
Oh
it's
yeah.
cheaper. But then
Mhm.
the final model will be what we call the museum board, which is these white boards that are a lot easier in terms of coloring if you
Yeah.
decide to do so. And I believe many portion of this model was actually laser cut, so it will actually have the burn mark. So I had
Oh,
to
okay.
touch up all of these edges with white paint, or
Oh my.
to make it all white rather than black.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did use some wood as well. These were 1/16th of an inch
Hmm.
wood board, and this was I remember it was very very expensive to make.
Hmm.
And then also we did some renderings back then. This was very early on rendering, when people were spending hours and hours on a single rendering. I believe this took me like overnight. So I
Oh
hit the render and I woke up hoping that by the time in the morning I'll have something to take with me for my
wow.
presentation. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night looking at it, like nothing's showing up because you
Yeah.
forgot to turn on the light on some part of the model, or you forgot to turn off the person who's like blocking your view, or forgot to turn on the tree that was supposed
Yeah.
to be in the background, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, this took me. I remember rendering on my tiny itty bitty laptop, and taking a whole night to just render a single scene that is somewhat usable for my presentation. So
Oh my
those were the
goodness.
olden days. Sorry,
Yeah.
like it takes me back a little bit to
Yeah.
talk about how cutting edge 3D printer was, and also how cutting edge CPU based renderings were in the past.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Crazy.
so this is what what did you use in your college days or school days?
Well, it depends on where we were. But when we were building models, like in the beginning, when we were actually physically building them, we didn't do any renderings. It all started based on sketching and doing conceptual sketches.
Hmm.
We actually, one part we started with, we had a piece of paper where we drew a bunch of circles, and we had to do like 100 circles. And then we had to do another like 150, and then we started our building with the circles and the cones and all the different shapes, and we went from there, and is how we used to do it in the very beginning stage. But once we got into the later stages, we I had to try to do Revit and render in Revit, and it
Mm.
never did come out as it should. But that's what I started with, was Revit and then rendering in Revit. So took us some time depending on how big the model was, but I probably would never go back to that. I would stick to SketchUp, Lumion, or probably maybe Enscape.
Yeah, things did get a little bit easier, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I also want to just kind of talk, kind of think through, I guess. We started from talking about sketches and physical model, which takes a long time, and potentially breaking them as you get to the site and presentation, and they are expensive to make, and how it takes a very long time to develop a rendering. And this is sort of a rendering slash diagram type of thing that are just kind of combined. But all of these even this kind of nice looking exploded diagram of a building to show
Mhm.
you the assembly of the building. All of these are really all for design communication in a way.
Mhm.
So sketches and uh, models and everything else has downsides and upsides, and obviously it was sort of the thing of the past.
Mhm.
But they were all for informing you or putting your thoughts and ideas onto a screen or paper or a physical format so that other people can see those things with your own eyes. So, this is a meme that I found. What
Mhm.
part of this don't you understand? And for a lot of us, we see these plans every day and we live with them. And perhaps I spent my 8+ hours staring at plans and working through them all
Mhm.
day. But some of your clients don't. And if you're someone like who this is something that I heard from people who works in the residential field is if your client is, residential client, then the chances are they've never seen a floor plan or they never dealt with how to draw floor plans in the past. And this will be one time of their lifetime. And that is it. And how do you communicate to those type of people who takes perhaps interested in looking at the plans and learning about it, but who just doesn't have the experience? Or you get a client, someone who's just not really keen on looking at plans at
Mhm.
all. Just they just want to know when it is done and how it is done and how much money that they have to pay.
Mhm.
So how
Yeah.
do you how do you train them, or how do we convey our ideas when they are either not experienced or not
Mhm.
interested at all?
Yeah.
And explaining your drawings and concepts and everything via words and emails is just very, very difficult. And also, even through drawings, are very, very difficult because people basically don't speak that language.
Mhm.
So, we all have been there. We're trying to explain I don't know, you're trying to move something and you call up GC and tell them, yeah, you move this direction, X, Y, Z direction, and move this thing there. It's just impossible. It's just so
Yeah.
much better to just have a drawing
Mhm.
and talk about it. And like screen share just saves the day many
Mhm.
times. So sometimes you look at a drawing like this, the just like the residential building, and even trained person like perhaps yourself as well, when you
Mhm.
first look at it, until I tell you the residential, it takes you a couple of moments to think, okay, this is a residential building. Then your eyes are wandering around trying to find some of the cues what this plan really is,
Mhm.
and you can find things like dining room, where the porte cochere is, or where the living space is, where the library is, but you have to kind of look through those tiny little information to
Mhm.
find out where those things are, and it doesn't immediately pop out to you.
Yeah.
So, however, if you look at something like this, then it's much clearer. There's actually less information, perhaps, but because
Mhm.
it is now made into 3D and perhaps somewhat of a rendering, if you will,
Mhm.
so that the relationship between spaces as well as labeling is much clearer than what it was. So it's the same space, but it's a different communicative style or medium. Therefore, the ideas are becoming a lot clearer. So I would say this was generated in SketchUp minus the labeling on them. So I would say SketchUp in some ways is also a design communication tool, therefore some conceptual rendering as well. So if you
Mhm.
look at an elevation like this, it's the same building, but you start to understand, okay, how many windows I've got, where is a doorway, where are cars supposed to go, where people are supposed to go, the and sort of relative height, that sort of thing. Start to get the feel of it. I haven't given you any material whatsoever, but those type of things are kind of guessed, and also those type of information are filled by your mind and your thoughts of understanding what typical residential buildings kind of look like. It could be stone, it
Yeah.
could be brick, it could be wood siding, but those type of things start to fill in the blanks as you
Hmm.
have some thoughts in your head as well.
Yeah.
So I would say SketchUp is a great visualization tool in that way, and it
Hmm.
can show the picture, which is worth 1,000 words.
Hmm.
So let's talk about what is conceptual rendering. Well, we talked about what the design communication is and how it is important to get an idea across. And conceptual rendering is really the communication tool. And if we were to try to dissect the word rendering, Wikipedia says it's an automatic process of generating a photorealistic or non photorealistic image from 2D or 3D by means of computer programs, which in this case could be SketchUp, Lumion, as you said, Enscape, whatever choice of your weapon is. And often it is referred as CGI, computer generated imagery, or visualization, or ArcViz for short. So
Hmm.
those are the interchangeable terms that we call rendering as. When you look at images like this, or image like this, it's a beautiful image,
Hmm.
and we can't take it apart from real image versus rendering. They said it was rendering, but until they tell me that, I can't tell
Hmm.
whether it is a rendered image versus a photograph
Hmm.
or mixed. I don't know.
Some people can be fooled.
A lot of people, including
Yeah, like
myself.
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially now, there's just so many things that can either look super realistic, but could be realistic because I feel like even in design now, sometimes design in person can also look conceptual, even though it's designed. A possibility.
Yep. And I mean, it is beautiful. I would
Mhm.
love to have it like framed and art piece in
Yeah.
my room. Uh,
Yes.
and a lot of renderings kind of do look that way. They kind of walk towards the aisle of towards realistic and real looking. And I think it's great at like telling you the idea of what it can be,
Hmm.
what it will be, hopefully. But as another side of that is like, can you maintain this new terminal as clean as this, or
Hmm. Hmm.
will it not be, uh, kids walking down and spilling a bunch of different things, and
Yeah.
will it be that? I don't know, but
Hmm.
obviously we're trying to sell something and
Hmm.
trying to sell our designs and thoughts. So it's important to sometimes show this type of realistic images as well. But it certainly takes the skill and time to
Hmm.
develop this. I can't do it. I don't have the skills for it, and
Hmm.
I most of all don't have the time for it either. And my time, my efforts also equates to money, and
Hmm.
also other people's time equates to money and or skills. So whilst it is an art, it is quite a lot of story in here and information, but our resources are limited, and let's put it
Hmm.
that way. So it is perhaps expensive to make,
Hmm.
but we do see this type of renderings or visualization or imagery towards the end of the project. When your project finishes, you often see it as a marketing opportunity or potentially seeking out tenants or further clients. And you use this type of image to just really the final sale of your project, not necessarily during the project. Much
Hmm.
like how I was talking about, as you said, we want to spend our money on chipboards or butterboards or yellow board, cardboard, and test out a bunch of ideas rather than resorting to something that's going to be very, very expensive to cut and then make
Yeah.
a physical model. Nobody's insane like that. We want to test ideas. We want to do something that is cheap, something that is quick, easy to make, just to get an idea and then move on to the final stages of design. So those are the things that I just want to highlight and in bullet point form. So photoreal rendering, unlike conceptual rendering, is more of a finished product. It is for publication and marketing purposes, and it shows the accuracy of form and materials because things are finalized. And I can't do it. It takes time and effort and skills to do that. And it often is produced by a third party because of that.
Mhm.
I don't develop it, and I don't think I render much of photorealistic type of rendering because I just don't have a necessity of it.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like I would, you'd see this a lot with upcoming buildings or upcoming communities.
And then on the
Um,
barrier
yes.
of a building, you get a potential look
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. It's like, because, they're trying to captivate the clientele for that. So that's either, like you said, when it comes to apartments, so residential, companies are really trying to captivate those people who want to come and live there, or um, like if it's a new strip mall, they're wanting to get a lot of people to come and for either the grand opening. So you want it to be a little bit more photorealistic.
Yeah, and I think it's like something that I see on, I don't know, a house sale or a new community, and then those type of renderings are included in the photo deck to just kind of show us what's gonna be like when it's finally
Mhm.
built together. And I think moreover, the usual normal people who's looking to purchase that are gravitating towards that. Whereas, like
Mhm.
I myself, if I'm looking for housing or
Mhm.
if I'm trying to get a better idea of a space, I ask for plans. Like
Mhm.
that's enough for me. I don't
Yeah.
need to see these
Yeah.
renderings and whatnot. So
Mhm.
it's highly unlikely, is
Mhm.
what I tend to think. But I think people who doesn't understand, obviously, the plans and the drawings, and you got to see these images to be able to spend your hard-earned money towards
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, something that I obviously did want to highlight is the fact that rendering can also be non-photorealistic, in addition to being very realistic, and often that's what general public kind of strive towards too. So, let's think on or let's think about that non-photorealistic aspect of rendering. It Things can be unfinished, less polished, perhaps
Mhm.
cheaper to make, faster to make, easier to make.
Mhm.
So, and that's why non-realistic or non-photorealistic. I'm trying to use the word conceptual for that
Mhm.
because it is less negative.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in some aspects, like you see this type of image. This was once taken from SketchUp's own website,
Mhm.
and you sometimes see this type of thing, as you said, on construction site on a post or something like that, to kind of give you an idea what this construction is currently about. And you're gonna see these type of buildings go up. And I thought this is pretty good example of what kind of concept. This doesn't necessarily say material.
Mhm.
It's kind of there, but not really. You just
Mhm.
kind of get the sense of, okay, there's going to be high-rise building with
Yeah.
balconies that are sticking out. And as you look through it, maybe residential because this is looking like a residential building. But
Mhm.
it doesn't, there's nothing else other than that. It doesn't really say more than enough.
Yeah.
Uh, Things are a little bit sketchy, a bit more loose. It's not all solidified into one thing. Like, okay, this is now going to be a brick building.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that, nobody's saying that through this image.
I feel like
So,
the two big things for that one was balcony, so just like a balcony, and then windows, which are huge. So like for residential, I feel like, and when people are looking for a place to stay, windows and balcony is like a big thing. So really, I mean, they're just showing there's going to be a lot of lighting, there's going to be a lot of like outdoor opportunities, which is huge. And you don't even need materials. It's just it shows it very clear here.
yep, yep. So we want to be somewhat loose on material selection or form selection, what really is. You don't have to show every single thing.
Hmm.
And this was very early on example of my I guess, studies of conceptual rendering. As I develop my own style and thoughts or process or design communication workflow, I was testing a bunch of different things, and this was used, or I developed this on the very early stages. And you'll see my style just kind of evolves and changes a little bit as I use different type of softwares or different type of clients or different type of projects and such. But just understand this as a conceptual rendering or how it kind of came about.
Hmm.
So I was trying to, so just kind of sit on here and look at it and just tell me what you see here.
Well, the first thing was the ceiling, the slats on the ceiling. The first thing that popped out to me, and then the silhouettes of the people. Being able to see those. I don't really, I mean, the more I looked at it, I kind of saw the escalator, but I didn't see it as much. That wasn't the first thing that popped out to me.
Right. Can you
Yeah.
guess what type of project this is?
Commercial?
Yeah, commercial
Yeah.
because of the escalator, right?
Yep. Yeah. Commercial, and then there's a lot of people at once. So a lot of people gathering. So when you're putting in your silhouettes, and then it's just very tall. So I feel like just needing the space, the tallness of it. I feel like a lot of commercial buildings have the opportunity for that.
Yeah. So this was supposed to be a shopping mall,
Mhm.
but you don't see a shop front. You don't see signs because none of them are important at this time because they're just all tenants to fill later.
Mhm.
But right now we're trying to design a little escalator lobby or escalator clear story space
Mhm.
that are just kind of a little bit more open, and that's in skylight. How do we
Mhm.
design that skylight is basically
Okay.
what the question was for this task. And can we, and obviously the wooden slats were the first focus, and that was very important. When you first look at this image, the first thing that comes into my mind, your mind, and everybody's mind should be the ceiling and
Mhm.
the skylight.
Mhm.
Because this is the question of the topic, or the topic of this meeting. And
Mhm.
my that's my intention. So I'm doing everything to drive my everybody's attention towards that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to leave out everything else. And then, so there's a couple of designs on the bulkhead that has a little bit of circles and dots and holes. I'm not sure what that is exactly, but there's a little bit of play of light, some form, and there's an oval shape with dangling things, water droplets of some kind, and you immediately spotted the wooden slats. So it is a wood. I'm not sure if it's gonna be that orangey, yellowy wood. It could be a lot darker, but everybody understand it's a wood. Nobody's commenting on the tone of the wood yet. The
Mhm.
reason for that is because that's the only piece of material there. Everything else is left alone. If I started painting the rest of the surfaces, they're gonna start thinking, okay, that is the wood is too yellow.
Mhm.
That's the last thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about the form of the skylight, the mood of the space, not the tone of the wood. We're not there yet. That's
Mhm.
not what we're trying to consider. But
Yeah.
there's so many times that the conversation will go that way if you have not prepared for a non-realistic or conceptual rendering. So, for example, this is perhaps a good example for this in comparison. So it's the same space, but this is looking finalized. Now
Mhm.
people are going to ask things like, okay, those dropping things off of the sky, why are they transparent, or why are they not blue? Why are they more yellow? And they're gonna start questioning. Okay, I want the lights to be white, not yellow lights. Why are wood too orangey? I want it darker. You start to get those type of comments because this is looking like finalized, whereas before those weren't the questions that popped into everyone's head. Like they're gonna ask things like, okay, does it really need to be oval? Can it be squarish? Can it be in a different form? Or can the opening be larger? You ask those questions. When you look at this image, you don't ask those type of questions. You ask about tone and the things
Mhm.
that are finalized. And you pointed out silhouettes of people.
Mhm.
Whereas here, you start to recognize people and
Mhm.
they're distracting. They're getting in your way of communicating your designs. This lady is on the corner, but her face is shown. So we see her and we're people. We are always driven towards another person's face. You instead of going to the design that I'm talking about, people will look at that lady's face and try to recognize if they know her. But
Yeah.
we're just developed that way. We're just geared like that. So you want to avoid being recognized, or
Mhm.
you want to avoid people going somewhere other than your design. That's why I use the silhouettes,
Mhm.
so but it is um, enough of silhouettes to convey the idea this is a busy shopping mall. It's not an empty lot that nobody likes to go to. It's somewhere that's busy and bustling, lots of people.
Mhm.
But here, it becomes more of a distracting element towards your design.
Yeah.
So this is another example of similar space, but the style of this image has been chosen to drive your focus towards the open skylight and the material of the surface and perhaps the design. So it's very important how you have a composite your image and also how to represent. And until you point out, people don't even notice that there's like silhouettes of people still to
Mhm.
just kind of tell you. And because you don't see faces, because you don't see like a realistic looking people in it, it becomes less distracting. Therefore, your focus is driven towards the design that we want to talk about. Again, this is a good example of a bad practice.
Too many
uh,
people.
too many
My
people.
eyes are like, people,
Yeah,
I've
people.
seen you before.
And they're walking towards you and they
Yeah.
show their faces. So if you have to put people or realistic looking people, then you must turn them around. You have to actually make sure that they are in a very, very far background so that people don't end up trying to recognize those people and become distractions. I want to talk about the roof. I want to talk about the swooping curve that are curved both ways on
Mhm.
this weird oval shape with the wooden slats that are continuing theme and these swooping curves of a bulkhead. It is very, very expensive. Trust me, you're spending a lot of money on this. You want to talk about this, not this dude that's walking towards you.
Would you ever suggest doing silhouette people in a real, like a, I guess a photorealistic or conceptual render?
Yes, always.
Yeah.
I always end up doing silhouettes of people, and that is very consistent to my conceptual rendering process.
Yeah. So you would do that like in this situation and you feel like it would be fine.
Yeah. So this is what I would do. If it was up to me, I
Mhm.
would, or this is what I did, and this is somebody else obviously did
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to drive my focus towards your very, very expensive roof system. It's the same material. I don't think material wise is any different, or I even included storefronts. And but because people are silhouettes, it is there if you want to look for it. But my setup is there. There's a
Mhm.
busy, people filled space. But what I want to talk about is the roof, not the person who's holding two sons' hands and just walking towards you.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I intentionally like it was very difficult, but I try to put like the attention to the expensive cars downstairs
Yeah.
away from the things that I'm trying to talk about, the swooping curve and how light it feels,
Mhm.
how not heavy it is supposed to feel. And you get ample light up there with lots of cove lighting so that you just kind of lighten that up. And then it's all kind of floating above you kind of
Mhm.
feel. And that's what I'm trying to convey through this type of image. Another good example of conceptual rendering. Um, Again, what can you tell from here?
Well, we have a large window. I think
Yes,
it's a window. I mean, to me, it's looking like a
it could
window.
be. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Could be a window or could be an aquarium, but to me it looks like a window. And then possibly a dining area, so like the seating, because there's quite a bit of tables. But oh, now I see the people. I didn't even realize there were people there. Yeah.
Yep. And that's a natural course that I want to take. Obviously,
Hmm.
I'm not going to ask questions to my client. I'm
Hmm.
not testing them,
Yeah.
but those are the things that people are naturally drawn to. You saw very large glassy area, whether that is outside versus a core, you're not sure. But you immediately spotted that it is sort of the dining area. It is
Hmm.
supposed to be this sort of two-story restaurant area that looks out to this riverside with the long bridge type of thing. So you get other, but your attention is not the outside. Your attention is what kind of glazing area that you have,
Hmm.
how it is two-tiered
Hmm.
floor so that you get to look out to this window whilst you sit around and dine around and also be able to enjoy this kind of high space.
Hmm.
And I just talked about everything that I wanted to. So whether it was a pink, doesn't matter. You
Hmm.
get some sort of patterns on the wall that is consistent with the glazing. Now you get to talk about these sort of design concepts,
Hmm.
not about specific chair style, not about the
Yeah.
floor tone. What is it? You get the idea of restaurant and this kind of warm feeling with the high ceiling area with the large glazing. Those are the things that you want to talk about.
Was
Like,
the pink
go ahead.
the was the pink intentional? So like
Yeah.
say if you weren't to do the pink, do you think it would be as effective or are you
Um, and
pink?
that's certainly something that I want to talk with the client, whether they agree with
Yeah.
my pink or color selection. I think
Hmm.
I wanted a bold color,
Yeah.
and I drive towards my blue all the time. So I was like, why not another color? So,
Yeah.
I put something in, but obviously it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to think, okay, I don't like the pink. We can do
Hmm.
something else. Then we just talk about, okay, what kind of color do you think? And
Hmm.
we can continue our design
Yeah.
conversation. Not, you settle on one thing. It's like, I think it's too pink.
Hmm.
Um,
Come on,
so
pink is great.
it is great, and I did not mind at all. And
Yeah.
my color selections are very poor, so I can leave that up to somebody else to decide. So, which is
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
This is definitely what we want to talk about.
Hmm.
Um, I did a little bit of different style. This took a little bit of post processing. Again, all of this is meant to be quick and easy. So many of these took, well, at least the conceptual rendering bit, I took almost zero post processing. The way these were developed, this one specifically, was to V-Ray render, and then I
Hmm.
just added SketchUp outline on top of it to make things a bit sharper. And it's an artificial ambient occlusion. So the edges are somewhat highlighted so that you can tell the difference between surfaces of the geometry.
Hmm.
But other than that, I didn't do anything on top. The same thing on here. Whereas this one, I added the tree. The reason for that is because I didn't want to draw the attention to the trees. I wanted them to fade away, but obviously they're never going to fade away like that. So I artificially made them fade away by
Hmm.
making them somewhat transparent, and obviously that involved a little bit more post processing. But other than that, the silhouettes of people again, and I've been going back and forth between illuminated people versus non-illuminated people, but the idea is there. Like,
Yeah.
not realistic people. Anybody who sees them can tell, okay, those are silhouettes of people, not ghosts. And also, that is just there to kind of fill in the space and give you an idea of scale of the space and how busy it is.
Hmm.
And now I want to talk about these openings within the slabs and how it leads to open sky, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want to talk about, and that's why I made this specific image. Uh, and you have specific spatial quality that you can always talk about, and people just kind of get out of your way in your discussion.
Hmm.
So you can talk about the wooden slats. railing that is going on there, whether it's going to be expensive, not expensive. You can talk about that. But these are my concepts. So we want to talk about how we were going to make that. Not everything's resolved. These are
Hmm.
just talking points. And you want to be able to create this very, very quickly so that you can later kind of solidify that on your own to develop further into your actual drawings and finalized images. Another example of conceptual rendering, not realistic at all, but
Hmm.
it kind of shows you the layout of the space on outdoor garden sitting landscape area towards this, I don't know what, green Pringles looking like thing. But it's sort of the master plan type of design study, but it shows a pattern of something that is going on the floor and
Hmm.
perhaps what kind of design you can have in there. And it is enough to tell what it is, but a lot of things are still loose and it's very sketchy, if you will.
Hmm.
Again, I would even consider this type of thing as a conceptual rendering as well, where it shows you, again, the layout of things. Some of the things are a bit rendered and there's a quality of lights in there, but not exact material per se. There's not enough of details and decided things in there. This is just good enough to talk about things. Okay, it's a busy, bustling area with lots of silhouettes of people, and you can see tables and chairs. So it's like a food court concept, and then you get this kind of different floors for down and up,
Hmm.
and then you get to go up and then go around spaces. Like you can talk about these. If you
Hmm.
were to just look at this in a plan, you don't get the same feeling.
Hmm.
But then once you kind of tilt it up and see it in a 3D with couple of, because the outside is white, people understand that this is not a real thing, and
Hmm.
but still get better idea of what the space is.
Yeah, I can see how this is super helpful for it's almost like a guideline for anyone who maybe, again, like you've said previously, isn't really as in the realm of the of this type of design, doesn't get into plans as often. I can see it can be really helpful because my mind immediately went to the center, and then I can easily start picking a few of the design features that you're trying to either start a conversation on.
Yep, yep. Well, thank you. And again, this is sort of the outdoor seating area. I guess I had a lot of involvement with food and beverage type of experience, but this is slightly different style again, kind of sunsetty, kind of. And now the silhouettes aren't as silhouetty. They're kind of reflective in a way. So I'm trying different things and see which one fits the best. But there are still more now materiality that are going on. There's water, there's plants, more plants are showing up, and it's meant to be more planty, meaning more greens.
Hmm.
So I didn't make the transparent trees in this case because I wanted to appear more green. And
Hmm.
there's sense of water, outdoorsy, clouds. There's those are enough words to describe
Hmm.
what I was trying to do in this space.
Yeah.
So that's what's been discussed. And this one is, I want something on the sky or something off on the roof or ceiling, and this time it's not pink, it's not
Yeah.
blue. It is kind of yellowy, reflective color sprinklered and creating shadows and
Hmm.
kind of having this sort of created mood because,
Hmm.
and I want to tell about this atmosphere that is going on. There's some sort of weird pattern that is going on all the bulkhead, and people get to hold their hands and walk down the space. Not sure what it is. Obviously,
Hmm.
shopping mall of some kind, but
Hmm.
is it an indoor, outdoor? It's kind of ambiguous.
Hmm.
If you know a couple of projects around the world, this is actually Millennium Dome. Inside of Millennium Dome, there is an arena, and then around the arena, it's like a donut shaped, and
Oh,
they
cool.
have an outlet mall. And these are inside of this canopy
Hmm.
that is going on, and we wanted to kind of drape these patterned ornaments on there to just kind of enlighten the mood, other than the yellowish canvas that is going up there. And these are
Yeah.
like the crane like thingies that are kind of stretching the canopies up. So
Hmm.
you catch glimpse of these, but actually you don't really get to see it above the canopy of the canvas.
Hmm.
And the canvas is not shown in here. It's actually removed to kind of give you a better idea of what the space or how light it can feel like.
Hmm.
It's not gonna be as bright as this, but I'm trying to sell
Hmm.
and an idea and just say, imagine what if,
Hmm.
kind of thing.
I think you should have done pink.
we went with yellow because these cranny things are actually yellow, but I could have certainly gone with pink,
Yeah.
maybe rose gold.
Yeah. Little
So
sparkle.
yeah, a little sparkly reflective thing, and I not sure I prefer this image, but if you were to go to third party render type of thing,
Hmm.
CGI artists, they would have come up with something like this where materials are much more realistic, and people, at least they didn't do a bad practice of putting like people in the foreground, recognize a face. They're
Yeah.
at least somewhat well arranged, and they're not too distracting, and I feel like this is pretty good rendering image. I wouldn't say conceptual rendering, but it is somewhat there. It's kind of
Hmm.
bright and washed out up there,
Hmm.
and this is how it ended up looking like in real. This is what it looks like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not as light or
Hmm.
yellowy as what we envisioned to be, but we all knew. And
Hmm.
then this was actually during night, so obviously things are a bit darker. But
Yeah.
it is underside of a canopy that's supposed to be kind of dark. So you get the idea. But
Hmm.
the practice is to really just sell an idea, not
Hmm.
necessarily show you what it's going to look like. I think there's a two distinction.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of end that section of a discussion as with this image. You get to look at an apple. Like you're trying to talk about your kitchen design, and then once you put an apple like this with a sticker on that is to be realistic, and have a little bit of I don't know, bad spot on an apple, like once you get into this decorative things, do you really want to talk about realism
Hmm.
and like the sticker on an apple? Like, we don't want that. We want to talk about how great your kitchen is and how much money you're spending on it, and I'm making it
Hmm.
worthwhile, and how great this countertop surface is supposed to be, not a sticker on an apple.
Hmm.
So conceptual rendering in general is sort of a work in progress. Nothing is set in stone. Everything's kind of loosey goosey, sketchy, and it also is important that it is non-destructive. Meaning, trying to develop that conceptual rendering should not disrupt your workflow. So if you have gone down putting stickers on your apples or decorative items that are in your on your table to make it more realistic, then kind of reverting and changing it to a different layout, different space, different countertop, different kitchen, it's going to take a whole lot more trying to remove that and relocate and then actually reconfigure. Whereas if you don't have those things within your space, then you don't need to. It's all fluid, and everybody understands you're missing those apples with stickers on because your thing is more development, work in progress, in development. And even if I don't have a actual floor cleaning machine in this corner, people understand I'm just
Hmm.
trying to demonstrate my ceiling, not a most realistic type of thing. So, and then it informs the design, your spatial quality, the atmosphere of the space, and you want to minimize the distractions. There are many distractions that can come into an image, so you want to stay away from those type of things. And obviously, it is meant to be quick, dirty, easy, uh, and also cheap.
Yeah.
So it is much like this sketch where you can just quickly do it together, but it is beautiful in a sense in
Hmm.
my mind. But um, conceptual rendering is much like a sketchy rendering, if you
Hmm.
will.
I feel like conceptual is more fun.
Hmm.
But I mean, personal opinion, but it can be more fun because it's almost like there's no rules.
Yep, and that's why it becomes more effective. I
Yeah.
think once everything is finalized, set in stone, then it's fine to create a realistic type of rendering.
Hmm.
But as a design professional, we're trying to convey our ideas and use
Hmm.
rendering as a communicative tool.
Yeah.
Therefore, we want to keep it as kind of loose, sketchy, and a bit less of information to
Hmm.
keep the things that we want to talk about more clear.
Mm.
So I want to talk about the methods in that little bit. We don't have a lot of time, and I never spend a huge amount of time in all the examples because these are always changing. The landscape of how to create conceptual rendering kind of changes over time as well. I did disclose that I use SketchUp as most of my conceptual rendering type of piece, and also my main go-to rendering software tends to be Enscape nowadays.
Hmm.
So those are the two combination that I use. But with help of AI, we can do these type of things. For those of you who are aware of SketchUp Diffusion, you can take a very crude messing model like this and do
Hmm.
a prompt of a modern pavilion building in the forest in winter snow. Why don't we actually do that? So here I have the SketchUp model of this kind of crude model diffusion, and you can go to 3D Warehouse. Sorry, not 3D Warehouse, Extension Warehouse, and then download SketchUp Diffusion. It's freely available. And once you open this dialog, you can say, let's see, a modern pavilion building in the forest in the winter snow. And I can't type that fast. So I'm going to copy and paste and hit generate. Let's see what it comes up with and see if it came up anything close to what I generated in the past. It will take a little bit of moment, and this is sort of AI thing. You
Hmm.
never know what you're gonna get, but
Yeah.
when you're trying to run a lot of concepts quickly with your client, you kind of worked out how big the living room space is, how big the kitchen space is, and trying
Hmm.
to see how they can all kind of form together to something. And if the client lives in the middle of urban area, then you can say that. Or
Hmm.
if they're in the forest, or if it is a winter, then you can use this prompt to get images like this. So that one or that one.
Oh,
How many?
wow.
Yeah, and
It was so quick.
it was quick, and also the information that I had to, obviously I'm not sure if this is what I intended, but it is something that you can expand on, and then you can just add more things like maybe not winter snow. So you say a modern pavilion in the forest with a parking lot. I'm improvising now. But you can talk about different things with your client, and whilst you're
Hmm.
talking about that, the computer is just going to
Yeah.
generate a couple of images to kind of go, I like the aspect of this image, I like the
Hmm.
aspect of that image. We can now create the mood board or Pinterest pin list so that you can refer to that later on. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what I was doing through my collection of images here. So that one, so I took the pavilion and then asked it to do a modern pavilion building in the forest in the winter snow, and then it gave me this. And then there are a couple of Christmassy versions of this. So you can quickly generate these type of mood board or images. I don't know why I was so in the mood for winter. Maybe I was just in a hot summer
You're
thinking.
wanting the winter to come back.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I did, and you can remove the word winter, and then you can
Hmm.
get these type of images too. And obviously, the more detail you have on the model, the more things that you can expect to see. So here, I really had just three blocks, and
Hmm.
that's what my diffusion decided to create off of those blocks. But you can also use more complete model and then let it figure out what you want.
Yeah.
So maybe a modern pavilion building in the forest.
Have you noticed using this that too much in a model is maybe not as easy of it, like for it to render versus if you give it less? So say if you're meeting with clients, like would you suggest from your experience starting with a very simple base model like your first original initial one
Yeah,
or something like this?
so
Yeah.
a lot more things are decided here already.
Hmm.
So there's a very little room that the AI or diffusion can figure out.
Yeah.
And your mind already is set on certain things. So until you see that, you're going to be like, that's not what I want. Whereas if you go to that 3 block diagram or massing study that you made, then there's a lot that you can go, oh, yeah, that's kind of like what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Because here, if you're this far ahead on
Hmm.
modeling, like I've obviously spent the time and thought about how to model this thing. So now we have a good idea what this is going to be. We already
Yeah.
see that here.
Yeah.
So everything's already set in stone. So once you get that, and then you see these images like, I actually did not think the rooftop's going to be that green kind of thing. So I don't think it is as effective if you
Okay.
are that far along. But
Hmm.
when you're literally just getting started, this is all you got. I
Yeah.
think it's a great place to use something like SketchUp Diffusion, and perhaps when your materiality is not set, because that you can say in the prompt, like, I want pavilion building with a wooden fence. Like
Mhm.
then, like it's gonna figure those things out. Or
Yeah.
is it a stone floor? Is it what kind of landscape do you have around it? That sort of thing. So there's a lot more that it can play into when your geometry is a lot more crude than this.
Yeah. Maybe you want to put some snow in there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Make it a little winter wonderland.
Yes, yes. And then there are a couple of more. I do want to talk about it eventually. Um, and we have that in the doc of SketchUp tips. Photoshop tips and tricks for architecture. But you can turn. I explained about how I was rendering on V-Ray and then superimposing SketchUp outlines to get better definition of the geometry and kind of tricked ambient occlusion. And I was using the face style of hidden line. So
Mhm.
you turn this into this, and then you export this image, and then you just superimpose that on top of the rendering.
Okay.
And there are a couple of things that you can do on Photoshop to make that process a bit easier. And then you can remove color off of or rendering. And here I wasn't even rendering. So what I was trying to show is you can export this image and you can export that image,
Mhm.
superimpose the two things on top of each other, and then kind of erase away the colored element so that you can drive your focus towards the middle. This is like
Yeah.
very simplistic way of kind of dialing down on or removing details and materiality off of your image. I
Okay.
wouldn't even call it a rendering because it really is just an export out of SketchUp. But
Yeah.
now then I don't have to talk about the reflective water or the trees around. All you want to talk about is this kind of blue metal framing that's going on in on your building. Then this is a great opportunity to set your focus on it and then talk about it. And you're
Yeah.
being very intentional of those type of things. And Enscape allows you to do this sort of sketchy style if you want to
Hmm.
remove all the materiality off of it. And there's a fun color pencil mode as well. So it kind of drives the reality of away, not that so that you're now taking the moment to again talk about the form and sort of the mood of the space rather than specific finishes. Like this is kind of showing us a blue. Is it a metal? What kind of metal it is? Is it a standing seam or is it a, I don't know, can we change to a different tone, color? Is it a wood? Can it be
Hmm.
concrete? You can talk about those materialities because those are kind of left as a question mark. So I felt that this sort of method is also a good way to convey your design ideas
Hmm.
when you're that far along that I've already painted your picture of by showing you this design, so your mind's already kind of set on it. But if you're seeing this for the first time, then those things are still kind of left as a question mark, and we can talk about it and let your mind fill that space rather than giving it and handing it off to you for you to
Hmm.
ask questions about, questioning like the tone of the image and such. And again, this is kind of hybrid of that. So I actually rendered it off of Enscape in color, and I also rendered it without the materiality, and then I superimposed those two things on top of each other, and erased away. It's because I wanted to talk about this kind of warm sun area that you
Hmm.
can get in a small cabin. You can sip on your coffee in the morning, and whether it's gonna be red sofa, I don't know,
Yeah.
but at least the idea is clear. Like it's a
Yeah.
sun area where you can just look out to your driveway and then sip on your first cup of coffee in a day, and everybody will understand that, and they're not going to talk about my terrible choice of blinds in the back, that sort of thing.
There's no coffee though. I don't see a coffee cup with,
I'm
with a tea bag hanging out of it.
I'm letting your mind feel that. Like I don't have to, I don't have to draw that. I
That's
don't.
true. You could be doing tea or it could be coffee or it might be
Once
something
I
completely
set
different.
down the coffee and model a little steam coming out of it, I've gone too far.
Yeah. It's a little
I'm
tea
trying to
bag
stay
over the
away from it.
side and
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm trying to stay away from the stickers of the apple.
Yeah.
All I'm
Yeah.
trying to do
Yeah.
is just put down enough of furniture to convey the idea.
Yeah. It's very cool. I definitely felt warmth when I saw it, so it was really cool.
Yeah. And if you really want to focus on specific material and the tone, then just leave that material alone and that'll be enough. And then we can talk about, okay, should it be darker or
Mhm.
should it be more red? Should it be more yellow or
Mhm.
do we want more gray? Like we can talk about these things once you look at a image like this.
Mhm.
Your focus is not driven to a shiny new car or people who's walking around in the space.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you can see the silhouettes of a person. That
Mhm.
lady there is the
Yeah.
one who was drawing the sketch that you saw in the very beginning. That was actually a capture from top down view of this model.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that is end of my slide deck for conceptual rendering.
Very cool. Very informative. I mean, I feel like I learned so much, even though I feel like I knew so much, but I learned so much just then. So,
Yeah, it's just to kind of get you more inspired
yeah.
and think about how you communicate your designs. Because
Hmm.
as a designer, we generally have so much drive
Hmm.
towards having more realism in your
Yeah.
drawings and renderings, and I feel like you need to just kind of take it down a little bit to make your ideas more clear. So
Yeah.
hope that was inspiring to you and other people who's watching. And yeah, if you have any specific workflow questions or some of your own little tricks to do better communicative in your designs, then communication in your designs, then please do let me know. Comment down below, and I'll be happy to carry on discussion with you. And perhaps those type of tips and tricks would make its way into my slide deck for next presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, as we kind of close this, what should we talk about next week?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you, putting you on the
Oh,
spot.
it's me. Um, I mean, I know we've talked about just like PC hardware. I mean, we had a conversation a little while ago about just maybe what's best for either this career or your career, everyone's career, and just what if it's Mac or, maybe it's a little more on PC side. And then kind of what you need to kind of get renderings off. There was a lot of information that was a little foreign for me when it came to what do we need for renderings specifically? Because renderings really, I feel like, is a big talk of design and um, how can we do that? Because, some things you can do on Mac, some things you can't do on a Mac. You need like a Windows. I think that could be probably pretty informative and helpful.
Sure, sure. Maybe let's talk about rendering hardware, and
Yeah.
we'll do that as a next topic. We can talk about what kind of computer specs that you need, what type of computers you may need for specific type of workflows.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, and I always use car as an analogy for your computer hardwares. Some people really like certain type of brand, and you just
Hmm.
got to go with it. And often it is sort of random whether you get a car that runs endlessly and never breaks
Hmm.
down versus you get a same model and make and still breaks down the next day. So
Yeah.
computer is similar way, although you
Hmm.
use it professionally. I feel like, I mean, I don't want to throw a lot of people under the bus, but I think computer became our tools of
Yeah.
our profession, and I think we should know our tools a little bit more and better.
Hmm.
Any artist should know where that brush came from,
Hmm.
what kind of animal hair that is, and a car racer should know what kind of engine that they're driving.
Yeah.
And I think as an artist who uses computer probably more than 10 hours a day should
Hmm.
know how the computer
Yeah.
works and what kind of gear that you need, and put a little bit of efforts and time in learning what kind of things are more suitable for you. And I think in the long term, it's going to help you better perform and also, sharpen your tools
Hmm.
and achieve something that you like. And you don't want to. Computers are expensive. I don't think
Hmm.
it's something that people buy out of whim. It's not something that you just order from Amazon and just go along your
Just get
day.
it
I
back
think
there.
it needs to be a little bit studied before you purchase, a couple of $1,000 purchase. And I think it's worth learning a bit more about it.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
hopefully, I can kind of better inform in that regard. And this will be probably talked again as we open up next week's topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think that is it for this week. Thanks for everybody who has joined and who will be watching this on record. And I shall see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
And that's it.